Welcome to Get Outside. This is where we talk about all things outdoors. And today we're here with Austin, Arteaga.
Yes,
he
ma'am.
is an enforcement officer with the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. And we're going to be talking about a subject today. It's kind of timely with, the spring weather coming up. It's warmer. People are going to be spending more time outdoors. We're going to talk about litter.
Absolutely.
It's not always fun to talk about, but it's necessary because I think educating people about what litter is and what the impact it has on our environment and our community is important, because that way people will know, they'll think twice before they say leave the litter on the ground or put something out of their car window. So let's just talk about litter in general, and from your standpoint as an enforcement officer, what are some things that you would like people to know just in general about litter and the way it impacts their community that they live in?
Okay. Well, first off, I'd like to thank you for having me on the program this morning. And litter impacts our community and our ecosystem very greatly. Part of our mission as Wildlife and Fisheries is to protect our natural resources and our waterways for future generations.
Right.
So we take that very seriously. Our department issues approximately 500 to 600 citations statewide for littering each year. So, there are different types of littering, say violations that can vary from simple littering, which could be something flying out of your vehicle onto the roadway, which is very common because
and that's an accident, kind of. Yeah.
But you're still
Could
responsible for your stuff.
Securing your load.
If you drive on any rural highway or state highway in the state, you see that there's tons of stuff on the side, and that not only affects our ecosystem, but it also affects our economy. But those are the simple violations. They can also escalate to intentional littering, where you can actually see somebody throw something out the vehicle, and that happens too often. That's something that we really focus on trying to educate the population about. It is an environmental risk, and it is a violation that you can get charged for.
It's against the law.
Absolutely. And then the more serious events would be gross littering and dumping, illegal dumping, pollution, and all of that. And those can carry fines up to $1,000 plus court costs, plus, like we were just talking about, litter abatement, community service hours that would be a mandatory portion of your sentencing for that violation. So we take litter seriously, and we really want to protect our environment, and that's why we're so adamant about it.
So when you talked about, we can talk about each one of the different types a little bit more in depth in a second, but let's talk about the economic impact, because when you just toss that cigarette out the window, I don't think the person who's doing that, or they're thinking, oh, they're just getting rid of their cigarette, but the impact, that's kind of a trickle-down effect. Someone has to get rid of that litter.
Absolutely.
If we want to keep our communities clean and attract, businesses and people. So talk about the economic impact.
Well, you mentioned cigarette butts, and I'll elaborate on the cigarette butts.
Sure.
They are very damaging, and a lot of people have the expectations or the idea that you flick your cigarette butt out, that there's nothing wrong with that. But that cigarette butt has a lasting impact on our ecosystem. The cigarette butt is fiberglass. It doesn't just disappear. Cigarette butts are often found in cats and dogs and squirrels and raccoons in their digestive system. So that's a big thing. The economic impact to the state, it costs the taxpayers of Louisiana approximately $40 million a year for different ways of dealing with litter, like collection and disposing, prosecuting violations, adjudicating.
That's a big impact. That's a
absolutely.
Huge impact.
And just rolling over into the public information and the media programs about litter enforcement and such.
And protecting your environment.
Absolutely.
Your natural environment. So cigarette butts are not biodegradable, just for everyone's education. And like you said, they impact it's not only unsightly, they impact the actual wildlife and ecosystems.
Yes, ma'am.
the waterways and everything. And I guess other things like, you know, you see people throw fast food items out of the window, plastic.
That's right.
Some of the dumping, I would imagine, is not supposed to be disposed of just regularly. It could be, you know, hazardous waste as well.
Absolutely.
So kind of all these things cross over.
When you talk about biodegrading, you know, just in general, paper takes about 2 to 5 months to biodegrade.
Wow.
Orange peels, banana peels, closer to 5-6 months, and then you have plastic and poly plastic types of equipment or belongings. That can take up to 10 to 20 years
Wow.
to actually break down. So when you see that stuff littered in our ditches and on our roadways and even way into our rural areas in our woods, you can be coming across stuff that's been there for decades.
A long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about what happens when, say, I am caught littering and I get cited for that. What's the cost to me? What's going to happen?
Well, simple littering can bring a fine up to $175 to $1,000. So it's kind of a sliding scale depending on the violation. So simple littering, something flying out your vehicle. There was an instance where I'm riding down the interstate, I'm behind a vehicle, and one beer can comes flying out the back of the truck. It's an accident.
Right.
Well, 5 more beer cans came flying out, hitting my vehicle. So I intended, you know, I pulled him over and wrote him a ticket. He collected stuff. That's simple. We encourage people to, one of the biggest things that you can do to prevent littering and you know, simple littering is to secure your load, to make sure that the bed of your vehicle is clean and, you know, free of things, loose debris.
Yeah, things that can fly out when you're going fast down the interstate.
Now that intentional littering where you see somebody throw the beer bottle or throw the Coke can or the Taco Bell bag out, that's $275 or $250 to $1,000.
Wow.
And then as we get higher into the intentional gross littering or
dumping,
illegal dumping, that's $500 to $1,000. And that's per case. Like I was telling you earlier, I have an ongoing case right now where it's multiple sites. So it's multiple citations,
so
multiple
you can be
charges.
fined several times. If you're just one person, every time you jump, you can get fined for that.
Absolutely. And then that doesn't include court costs and other fees associated with the criminal justice system, and then that litter abatement program.
So you might be out there picking up litter
yourself. Each violation has a mandatory, I believe it's 8 hours of litter abatement work to go and work into your environment, or work into your local area, working on cutting down on litter. So it's...
Well, you touched on some ways you can prevent litter, like simple littering. And what are some other things people can do, not just to stop themselves from littering, but just to help educate people in the community or just aid in this litter abatement effort, in this movement?
Right. We encourage people to carry trash receptacles or trash bags with them, whether it be in their vehicle or, you know, us with Wildlife and Fisheries out on the waterways. When you're in your boat, we see often, a lot of times, we'll stop people and they have their cans or Coke bottles or whatever kind of floating in the bilge area of their boat, which eventually will get washed out. So if you can just collect all of your trash, and it's everywhere you go. If you're going to the park, to the lakefront, wherever you go, try to be responsible and think ahead. You know, if you're eating crawfish or whatever it may be, having a cookout, and maybe you're on the lakefront and it's windy, try to keep everything collected. Another tip we like to give out is, if you live in a rural area or even in the city, we have varmints, we have raccoons and possums that like to get into trash. So try to cover your trash and prevent it from getting scattered, because nobody wants to pick up scattered trash.
Once it's been in the garbage can.
Absolutely. So little things like that, and you know, in closing, or you know, to add to that would be, if you see litter, if you have any kind of information that could help us solve litter cases. If you see something, you know, say something. It's kind of like the...
Now, how would you do that? How do you say something?
Well, you can report litter or litter information violation to our hotline, which is 1-888-LITTERBUG, and that's
Okay.
1-888-548-7284.
Okay, great.
And also, I can say that all of this information that we just talked about is available on our website, a state website. It's wlf.la.gov.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add about just sort of what would you want people to kind of come away with
Well,
today?
you know, we pride ourselves in Louisiana as being a sportsman's paradise. So help us help you continue to maintain what we have, a beautiful environment. And it's just too pretty to be littered up with trash. So help us maintain, you know, what we pride ourselves on, which is being a Louisiana sportsman's paradise, because
Right.
we have so much to offer. And when you litter, it really affects tourism, ecotourism, and our industry. So I would like to just leave everybody with, you know, be responsible, pick up after yourself. If you see something, please report it to us, because it's something that we pride ourselves in trying to keep our environment safe and clean, and like I said earlier in my opening, for future generations.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you being here, and thank you so much for all this information. And again, if you want to report litter, it's 1-888-LITTERBUG. So 1-888-548-7284. And incidentally, you can also report it through parish government too. For the parish, you can go on to keepsttammanybeautiful.org and fill out a litter reporting form. So we thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to everyone for watching.
But it would be safe to keep your distance until there's no secret that laughter makes you smile. Reliable sources say that chicken soup has found their way out of this dangerous, but they are returning.
Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. Go to discovertheforest.org.
Hey, my name is Will Afton. I work with the LSU Ag Center here in St. Tammany Parish. And this month I want to encourage everybody to get out and try some gardening this spring season. Today, look, I've brought a whole collection of plant material. That's what most people love about gardening, is the fact that, you know, we grow pretty flowers, they smell nice, maybe they attract butterflies, hummingbirds, but there's just so much selection out there that sometimes it can be a little difficult when you go to the garden center to, look at all these plants and see what are you going to plant in your yard. Seems to be always some new variety that's out there, and it makes it difficult. So hopefully here I can shed a little light to maybe make things a little bit easier. So before you go to the garden center, you might want to make it a point to, note your flower beds and note how much sunlight do they receive. Some beds are shaded for most of the day. Some beds may be shaded for portions of the day, and then some beds might be left out there and just get sun all day. And all these different plants that we choose from, they all have different light requirements. So make that a point to do a little bit of homework before you go out there, so you know the sunlight conditions in your flower bed. Now I got a whole selection of plants here. Most of these are going to be spring, summertime plants that'll grow during the warm season. Something that's really small, doesn't get but maybe 6 to 8 inches from the ground, creates a nice little carpet, is this alyssum flower. It's very fragrant. That's the first thing you notice about it when it's planted in the garden. But it does well into the springtime. And it'll do good up until it gets really hot. So usually by the end of June it might fizzle out, but we have a lot of time now if we get it planted in March. Another full sun plant here is this baby wing begonia. Begonias are very popular garden plants. They've been around for a long time. Everybody's mother grew a begonia at one time. This baby wing series, we actually named it an LSU Ag Center super plant. It's been grown throughout the state of Louisiana, and it performs well, easy to grow, easy to maintain, can handle a good bit of sunlight, but can also handle a good bit of shade too. They'll probably get to be 2.5 feet at the end of the summertime, almost growing into a hedge. It's a very tough plant and very easy to grow plant. Just kind of moving right along, another low growing plant, this what we used to call fan flower is Scaviola. Scaviola is kind of a creeping plant. A lot of times at the garden center you'll see these planted in a hanging basket because that creeping effect will grow over the side of the pot and droop down. You can get it in a few different colors. Here's a white, a pink, and a purple. It's a very popular plant. Can be used as a ground cover or can be used in maybe a container gardening plant. It's planted on the edge so you get that spillover effect. Another good summertime plant here is Pentas. Pentas is another very popular plant. It's actually a perennial plant where it's native to, but we treat them as annuals here in Louisiana. Grows all during the summertime and blooms all during the summertime. It's a great butterfly plant. Those flowers produce a lot of nectar, which will attract those butterflies. Speaking of butterflies, butterfly gardening and pollinator gardening are two niche gardening concepts that are gaining a lot of popularity. I get a lot of calls and questions on how do I attract pollinators, how do I attract butterflies. But basically with both of them, we have, butterflies, moths, all the different pollinators. They're attracted to nectar in the flowers of plants. So there are certain plants that just produce more nectar than others. One of those being sage plant or salvia plants. The whole genus of salvia is known for producing a lot of nectar. So if you want to attract butterflies and all types of pollinators, plant several varieties of sage in the garden. Also too, with butterflies, the adult butterfly feeds on nectar of the plant, but the larval stage, that caterpillar stage, before metamorphosis, they actually feed on the foliage of plants. So what you find with butterflies is there's a whole slew of what we call host plants. And so these specific butterflies, they'll lay their eggs on a specific host plant, and those young will develop and feed on the foliage. They're very specific. So with a butterfly garden, if you're trying to attract certain species, you can actually go out and plant certain host plants in the garden to attract those and have those occur in your garden. So, there's a lot of information out there. The LSU Ag Center actually publishes a publication on butterfly gardening that has some nice charts in there that explain all the different host plants. So you can get that at lsuagcenter.com. Butterfly Gardening for Louisianians is the title. But this plant back here, this taller plant, this is what we call butterfly weed, or Asclepias. I don't have any blooms on this plant just yet, but this one actually blooms a red and orange bloom. It produces a lot of nectar, but it's also the larval host plant for the monarch butterfly, which is probably the most common butterfly that we have here in Louisiana. So not only is this a host plant for the monarch butterfly, the flowers actually produce a lot of nectar to attract other butterflies as well. So butterfly weed is a staple for butterfly gardens in Louisiana. Speaking of pollinators, butterfly or honeybees actually get all the attention, but butterflies, moths, other flying insects can also be pollinators. But one thing we don't think about is birds. There are birds that feed on the nectar of plants, and in doing so, they might help that plant out in pollination. So back here we have a Kufia plant. Some people might know it as cigar plant. So Kufias, they bloom tubular-shaped flowers, which are perfect for the beak of that hummingbird to fly down in there and feed on that nectar, but at the same time could knock some pollen around and pollinate that plant. So if you want to attract some hummingbirds, look for tubular-shaped flowers, and Kufia is a great choice. Just moving right along here, so a lot of these plants I've mentioned earlier are sun-loving plants, so they can take a good amount of sun. There are plants, though, that do well in the shade. We have a couple of coleuses here. These are shade coleus. When you shop coleus in the garden center, pay attention to where it's located. If it's located under a shade tarp, then it's a shade variety. But if they have that variety of coleus out in the full sun, then it's a sun variety. These two are shade coleuses. They provide very good color, and what I like about coleus is they provide texture. those big course-shaped leaves really provide a nice texture contrast with other plants in the landscape. It's also something to think about because with the colorful foliage, you usually get a longer presentation time than you do with the flower. And then when growing coleus, because we like and grow them for those beautiful big leaves, if they do produce a flower, we like to go through and pinch those out because we just want it to produce more and more leaves. We don't really want it to flower. Another good plant for the shade here is Terenia. Some older gardeners might know this as wishbone flower, but I mentioned earlier about the LSU Ag Center Super Plant Program. We actually have the Kauai series of Terenia as one of our super plants that we promote in the springtime. But Terenia loves to grow in the shade, thrives during the warm season, so spring, summer through fall. You'll have big, beautiful plants. They're very tough plants. They can take a beating. If they get rained on, they bounce right back. It's one of the most well-known qualities about Terenias. Now, speaking about texture plants, another interesting plant here that we've named a LSU Ag Center super plant is Alternanthera. It's a variety called Joseph's Coat. Gets about 12 to 16 inches tall, produces this nice purple foliage, not quite as coarse as a coleus, but it provides a different texture to look at. Alternathers are great plants to have. Let's see, another common plant that I'm seeing in not only in the landscape but also hanging baskets, container plantings is sweet potato vine. And we all know that Louisiana can grow some great sweet potatoes as far as the agronomic crop is concerned. But at the garden center, you'll actually find ornamental sweet potato varieties. Here we have this one called Ace of Spades with this nice die-cut foliage, a nice deep purple texture. And then I have one back here called Marguerite. It has a lime green margarita colored foliage. Kind of strikingly different. These are nice vining plants that you get that spillover effect. They can even cover ground. They can be used as a ground cover, and they will thrive all season long. So you get a long-lasting effect from planting sweet potato vine into the garden. Another LSU Ag Center super plant, and it's the first time we've actually selected a succulent type plant, but if anybody's familiar with growing sedums in the garden, sedums are very easy to grow plants. They are very cactus-like, those big succulent leaves. They'll thrive in a full sun location. If you forget to water them a few times, they're okay with that. Very resilient plant. But back here we have this lemon coral sedum. This really bright green fluorescence color really stands out in the landscape. Low growing, ground cover type plant. You see that fine texture, so you could pair that with some coarse textures to get a really good combination going. But just a very easy to grow plant and excellent choice to grow in your Louisiana garden. They're so popular, I don't want to forget about mentioning them, but petunias. It's another one of those just popular plants you see at the garden center. Usually walk out and the first several tables are probably filled with different varieties of petunia. That's because of its popularity, not only in Louisiana, but across the country. This Bubblegum Vista series down here, this bright pink flower, an excellent performer. It's also an LSU Ag Center super plant. Petunias, a lot of people get their petunias planted in November, and they'll let them grow all season long throughout the spring. But we can totally get a planting done in March and have excellent plants for the, for the spring and early summer season. They will fizzle out a little bit during the months of July and August, so at that time maybe we're replacing them, putting them with something else. But petunias, especially some of these newer varieties, really work well in our Louisiana climate. Another well-known plant, and this is also a super plant selected by the LSU Ag Center, is lantana. Lantana is a larger growing shrub. Some of the older varieties will reach about 5 to 6 feet, but this bandana lantana is a little bit smaller, a little bit more miniature in size, so maybe 3 to 4 feet. Produces a lot of nectar, so it's a great plant to include in your butterfly or pollinator garden. As long as we don't get excessive rainfalls, it'll produce flowers all season long. It's just another great plant to include in the garden. and it can be treated as perennial. So, you know, when cool weather comes in the fall, maybe knocks it back some, we can prune it back, cover it with mulch, and we can expect that plant to come back next year. Let's see, for the shade garden, there are several ferns that we can choose from in Louisiana, and we have several macho ferns on the set here, but you know, we also have Boston ferns in the back. There's Japanese painted ferns, there's a holly fern, even, you know, asparagus fern. All of these thrive well in a shaded garden, add a nice tropical look, and can even handle a little excess moisture, which you know, we experience quite often here in Louisiana. So for your shade gardens and shade areas, look at all the varieties of ferns that you find at the garden center, you know, to make a nice selection to add to your garden. Another common topic that I get in the springtime that I would like to share a little information on is, you know, what to do for your lawn in the springtime. You know, we're sitting all winter long, and you know, our lawn's not growing, just looks bland, and so as soon as we hear spring is coming, we want to get out there and we want to do what we can to you know, to help it out, or, you know, start maintaining it. So basically this month of March, we just need to let it come back, let it grow in. It's going to come back in patches. It's going to awake from dormancy. It'll soon green up, but it's going to go through what we call the spring green up phase. During that spring green up phase, I like to refrain from spraying herbicides. I refrain from fertilizing because I want that plant to come out of dormancy on its own, and then usually by April 15th, we can make that first application of fertilizer. A lot of people get themselves in trouble by fertilizing too early in the season, especially during wet seasons. There's a disease out there called brown patch that will run rampant in a wet lawn, especially after an application of fertilizer. So wait until April 15th, tax day, to do your fertilizing. There's several herbicides out there that you can actually spray over the top of your lawn that can help you with broadleaf weeds, even some of the grassy type weeds. Make sure you identify what species of turf grass you have, because if you read the information labels, some of these can be used in some species and then some of them can't. So identify what you have, try to identify those weeds, and then you know, go talk with some of the staff members at the garden center about an appropriate herbicide that will maybe give you some help there. Most all these herbicide sprays, we call them post-emergent herbicides. These are going to be sprayed after the fact. They're going to be sprayed on top of the grass to get all those weeds that are growing in the grass. But there's a new type of herbicide that's out there. We refer to them as pre-emergent herbicides. And these pre-emergent herbicides are usually in a granular form, but you can find them in a liquid form. And they're sprayed out over the lawn. They cover the entire area. And what they do is they provide a nice herbicide layer right at ground level. So as seeds germinate, they'll grow through that herbicide layer. We'll kill them then, and we don't ever even see them. So look to use pre-emergent herbicides. Include those into your toolbox. Can be very effective against annual weeds. And most garden centers, home improvement stores have a few selections for you to choose from. Just make sure you always read and follow the label instructions when you apply any pesticide to the garden. And to wrap things up, remember that my name is Will Afton. I work for the Louisiana Cooperative Extension Service under the LSU Ag Center. My office is in Covington. I'm located at the fairgrounds. And I'm here, I provide a service to the citizens of St. Tammany. So if you have any gardening questions, you have gardening problems, or maybe you maybe heard about something new that needs to be explained or whatnot, how to get involved, give me a contact. We have lsuagcenter.com as our website. My local phone number is 985-875-2635. You can contact my office to get in touch with me, but feel free to reach out. You know, I also work with the Master Gardeners of St. Tammany Parish. I'm actually a Master Gardener coordinator, so I train them and use them as my kind of volunteer service to help me just get more programming to the people of St. Tammany. They have a website, www.stmastergardener.org, and I do several events with the Master Gardeners. We do a spring and fall gardening seminar in the month of March. This year it's going to be March 15th and 16th. We do the big North Shore Garden Show and Plant Sale, where there's going to be several vendors there selling plants. A lot of vendors are actually wholesale nurseries from St. Tammany Parish, so it's locally grown product. We also put on an extensive education program. We have speakers coming in both days. I have Master Gardener volunteers giving small demo table talks throughout the whole event, both Friday and Saturday. So it's a great place to learn a lot of just different gardening information, or you can always catch me there and pull me aside to ask a question. Just remember, the LSU Ag Center is here for you and all of your gardening needs. Thank you.